everyone, it's Tammy and welcome to Knitting 301, I suppose. The first one I did, I showed you guys some essentials. The second one, I showed you some yarn. This one, I'm going to show you a little bit of loom knitting, and then the next video, and I think my last video, will be on needle knitting. So, and just doing the knit stitch on that, I think. But anyway, with this one, this is a loom, and I've told you a little bit about that, so I'm going to assume that you've watched the other videos and you know what all of this stuff is. And I have been knitting this for a little minute, so you can see that I have quite a bit done. It has a long way to go, but there's still a bit. This is my tail, and it's just hanging out, and I'm just going to let it hang out until the end, and then we'll put this, we'll meld it in, and I'll show you how to do that maybe, but don't worry about that right now. But then you can see how the stitches, I think this is just beautiful yarn. Now this does curl up, as you can see, so I think that there's something that I can do to prevent that, but I don't know what that is yet, so I'm just going to wait until I'm done, and then I'll see what I need to do for that. But this is just a knitted scarf, and I haven't done any purl stitches. This is just all knit stitches. But the opposite of a knit stitch is a purl stitch. So even though I haven't done any purl stitches, if I would have done the whole thing in purl stitches, it would look the exact same. Only the purl stitches would be on this side, and the knit stitches would be on this side. So this means that all of these are purl stitches. So you can tell the difference between a knit stitch and a purl stitch. And I learned this watching a YouTube video. And I don't know who to give credit to because I forget who said it, but you can see that the knit stitch looks like a little V. That's like a classic knit stitch. Then the purl stitch, it's like little lines, little bumps. And the way that I'm remembering this is that purl kind of sounds like purr, which sounds like burr, and these look like little scarves. So it looks like your little stitch is wearing a little scarf. So this is the purl stitch, burr, and this is the knit stitch. So when you are knitting on a loom, the right side of your project is going to be the side that comes off towards you, and the wrong side is the one that comes off to the end. And the loom will just come through the middle, whatever it is you're making, however wide it is. If I was doing the whole circle, it would still come off in the middle, and this would just be, the whole thing would be full, and it would just be coming out of the middle, just like this. And to knit stitch, you have to cast on just like you do with anything, and that just means you're putting the stitches on. And because I'm using such thin yarn, I am doubling up the yarn for this one. If I were using a thicker yarn, I wouldn't have to double it. So I am going to show you how to do this using a different yarn and a different loom, but I want you guys to see what I'm doing with that too, and just a different idea. So I'm going to be right back with something else. Okay, so you guys might remember this zippy loom from the first video that I did, and I love this zippy loom. It is fabulous. And then I'm also going to use this yarn that made its first appearance in the last video. So I know of two different ways to cast on, and I'll show you both of them. For both of them, you need a slip knot, and to do a slip knot, you just take your yarn, you put it over 2 fingers, and you just kind of let it hang. And it doesn't matter if you do it this way or this way, it doesn't matter. Know that this end is the tail, and this end is the working yarn. The end that's connected to the ball of yarn is called the working yarn. The other end is the tail. So you hold both of those in your hand, you take your 2 fingers, twist it around, turn it around, pick up your working yarn, leave your tail, pick up your working yarn. Whoops, that didn't do it. It does matter maybe which side you have your working yarn on. Okay, sorry. So you want your working yarn to be towards you, at least for the way I'm doing it. Working yarn towards you, tail away from you. Hold your yarn, twist your fingers, pick up the working yarn, and pull it through, and then hold on to both of the yarns again and pull. And then you have a slip knot. You can see how if I hold on to the tail, the slip knot, the slip part comes from the working yarn, and that's the way you want it to be. You want the working yarn to control how it slips. So let me show you that again. And to get the slip knot out, you can just pull and it will come out. So you want to take your yarn, put it over your two fingers with the tail end away from you. Hold both of them like this. Twist your hand and grab onto just the working yarn and pull up. And as you're pulling up, you can let go of this one with your thumb, but you still want to hold on to the tail, and then I grab hold of the working yarn and just pull. And then I have a slip knot. So again, if I use my working yarn, I can make it go bigger or smaller. So there's two ways that you can cast on. The first way would be to slip this slip knot onto the end and then pull this to make it so that it's stuck on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do what's called an E-wrap, and you'll see why it's called an E-wrap, because you're making kind of an E with the yarn, and you're just putting it along each one of these. This is one way to cast on. And then what you'll do once you've done that is you'll go back the opposite way, and you want these to always go behind the loom. So you start out always with your yarn going behind the loom and then doing its circle, behind the loom and doing its circle, behind the loom, doing its circle. And when I'm at the end, you just let it hang for a second. Now none of these are very tight. You don't want them to be tight at all. Then you take your needle or your hook, you take the bottom over the top like that. And see how easy this is to do? It should be just that easy. You don't even really need the needle. You should just be able to easily pull these over. And then it will look like that. And I didn't do this end. I don't really know if you're supposed to with the cast on. I don't know if you do it for that one. Most of the time I do. For whatever reason, I didn't this time. So now what I would do is I would continue to go, and this first stitch goes around the front, which is the only stitch. The end stitch goes around the front. Now I go to the back. Every time I go toward the back, and I'm going to pull some more of this yarn out. So this one goes here, and then I go back toward the back. And this is just the classic E stitch. E-wrap, I think is what it's called. And then now I do the same thing again, pulling this over the top. This is your classic knit stitch on the loom. And it's not tight. You don't want to pull these tight. You just want to do it very loose. And then it's going to start looking like this. And you can see how it's kind of a loose knit. It's going to be like this. Very loose, but very pretty, just very loose. And that's one way to knit. And you can continue on doing the whole thing just like that. The first one goes over and then behind, and push these down, sorry. You need to push these down and then go behind, behind, behind. And again, I'm not pulling. I'm not making this tight. I'm not pulling at all like that. You're just, seriously, you are doing it so loosey-goosey. Do limp-wristed, just move, just put it around there. Even sometimes the tension of the yarn can be too tight. So make sure you have yarn pulled out so that it's ready to go. And go behind, 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 behind. And then just pull it over. And again, you don't even need the hook on this one. Now the smaller looms, you're going to need the hook, but for this one, you don't even need the hook. You can do arm knitting or finger knitting. If you watch some videos, it's the same kind of concept, and it's just going to give you really loose, and that's why you need really thick yarn to make this look pretty. So that is how you knit. There is a purl stitch, and you guys may have heard knit 2, purl 1, or whatever when people talk about knitting. Knitting and purling are the two stitches that you need to know. There might be more. If there are, I don't know them. But the purl stitch is very easy on the loom. You do it kind of the same way. So to do a purl stitch, I'm going to do all of these for a purl. So what I'll do, actually for the purl stitch, you want these to be a little higher, because the purl stitch is the knit stitch only in reverse. So instead of doing this and going over and then behind and behind and behind, and just going in front and then pulling this over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and go in the front. And what I like to do is I just lay this whole thing on the front like that. And then I take my hook, you kind of need your hook for this one, and you put it under the one that was already there. So this is the first stitch that was already on there. Unlike how you were, so you're still using the first stitch. For knitting, you take the first stitch and you put it over the second one. For purling, you take the first stitch and you lift it up and put the working stitch, I guess the working yarn, underneath this, and then you pick it up like this and you make a little loop. I should probably have that on this side. So see how it made the little loop? Now I'm going to take it off of this and put this loop onto him. That probably didn't make a ton of sense, so let me do it again. I'm going to take this, it's just laying underneath him. I'm going to take my hook, go under the first stitch, make it go over the working stitch, pull this up, and it has a little loop. I want to take this loop and put it over this. So to do that, first I need to remove this and put this one on. So kind of one thing to kind of remember, and then I pull this just a little bit. I don't want it to be tight. I'm not pulling it tight like this. I'm just making it so that it's secure. I don't want it to fall off on its own, but that's about as tight as I need it, just so it won't fall off on its own. One thing to know is that you always just want one stitch on each one of these at any given time. You don't want two or more. You just need one. So I need to do this again. So I'm going to put this underneath. I'm going to take this one, go over the working stitch, and then pull the working stitch up to make my little loop. And then I want this loop to go over his neck, but because there's already one on there, I have to take that one off first. Take that one off, put this one on, and then pull lightly to get it to be around his neck so it won't fall off. So, and all of your looms, you'll notice, have the nice ball on the top so that the yarn won't just automatically fall off. But then they also have this little indentation in the front, and all of the looms have that. And that's so that you can put your needle, your hook in there and actually use it to hook, which is fabulous. You will need that, and you'll totally understand why when you're doing it. So you take the top one over the bottom one, pull the bottom one up and through so it forms a loop. Take this first loop off, put this loop on, and pull it a little, I'm not even going to say snug, just pull it so it's not going to fall off. So again, this, this, this. And you can just do that as many times as you need, and that's the purl stitch. So I'm going to take all of this off for now and undo it and show you a different way to cast on, because I like this other cast on maybe better than this one. I don't know. They're both nice. But I can just easily pull all this out with no problem. Okay, the second way to cast on with this would be to still do your slip knot, and then what you'll do is you'll take your slip knot and you'll put it not on it but between two of the pegs, and then you don't need the tail, that can just go to the side. Just pull this one through and form another loop, and then you put that one on the second one, and then grab the working yarn, make a loop, and you want all the loops to be about the same size. But that is another way to cast on, and this gives a different look at the end. And I can't really show you what the two different looks are because I don't know, I don't have two of them to show you. But when you do this, you'll see, and I kind of like this one better. This one kind of gives you like a braided look. I don't know, I kind of think it looks neat. So I'm just showing you guys what I know again. Oh, and then when you get to the end, you don't want to do another loop. There's nowhere to put it. You just put him right over the last guy. And then this is my cast on, and then I can go ahead and do this however I want. If I want to do my knitting, I just do my E stitches again. And I go from there and just knit away. So that is just the second way of casting on if you guys are interested in doing that. I just wanted to give you the two options that I know. And I think that's all I can teach you right now. So next I will show you how to knit using the needles. I always call them sticks, and that's not right. But that's what I know. So thanks for watching, guys. And it's the same concept no matter what size loom you're using. So I do the exact same thing with this loom as I do with this loom, only it's smaller and a lot more stitches. But it's the exact same technique. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.